I'm going to share this to Facebook too, if you don't mind. Give me a second. Okay, we're back. Well, thank you all for coming. And so the first thing on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting. And thank you, Deborah, for your careful review. And I did incorporate your suggestions. So unless anyone has anything to add, are we good to go with the minutes? Oh, okay, excellent. Then the next thing on the agenda is the motion we were going to create to ask the CCC to lobby on our behalf with the city attorney and the FPC and the MPD, so we can get more timely responses to our questions regarding the data, the MPD data. So I came up with a new version of the motion other than the one that I sent you already. So I'm going to share my screen and just and see if you like the new one, or I'll show you what the difference. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, there. I hope you can see my screen and here. And let me know if you cannot see my screen. Good, everyone. Good to go. Okay, so you know, the first iteration of the motion, I was asking to have meetings and so forth, and I just think they might balk at having another set of meetings with us. And all I really want is to get answers to the questions that we have, so that we can accurately communicate to the community what it is we're seeing, and raise issues that we've been starting to discuss now, that, you know, problems that we see with the data. So I have the original version up here, and I did add a couple little things to it, but I want to read to you the new version of the motion, if you don't mind, and just put it out for your consideration. The CCC should request that Assistant Attorneys Heather Ho and Julie Wilson coordinate with the MPD, FPC, and CJI to provide timely responses to questions and issues raised by the Community Survey and Research Committee regarding the MPD data provided to the FPC per the terms of the Collins ACLU settlement agreement. This cooperation is essential for the community to have an accurate picture of the MPD data to identify ongoing issues that may negatively impact police-community relations. So I wanted to focus the motion on specific actionable contact, have the people that we want to contact, tell them, I just want them to respond to us. You know what I'm saying? We don't, you know, if we try to raise the bar, well, like, they got to have a meeting with us. We don't need a meeting. But so anyways, how does that strike y'all? Any comments?
Yeah, I would say that's fine with me. I agree with you. We don't necessarily need a meeting. I think, as you mentioned, the information is what we're seeking.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Steven?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times, because bureaucracy is so big, sometimes that is used as a way of engaging in a certain level of avoidance of having to directly address issues, because sometimes it's very difficult in a massive bureaucracy to even pinpoint directly who to contact, or who the best person is to contact. I'm not sure for our questions in particular if the city attorneys or the assistant city attorneys are the appropriate folks. I'm guessing that most likely you came up with that because you were told that, or
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could, were you told that for your question specifically that they were the best folks to go to?
For the first couple, I just wanted to point out, we're in the 4th year of this 5-year settlement agreement right now. Okay, it started in July 23rd. And for the first almost 3 years, there was really no focal point of coordination of the defendant's response to the terms of the agreement. Whether that was the Common Council funding the FPC at the adequate level, or the FPC and the MPD communicating correctly on their audits, or, I don't want to call them out specifically in that way, but in general, there was no focal point. And then I was throwing questions to Inspector Boston Smith at the MPD, and to Christine Cole at CGI, and Jack McNally at the FPC. And apparently they were getting tired of getting so many questions from me. So they said, well, since we now have created a focal point of contact, the city attorney's office will be the focal point of contact for all issues related to the settlement agreement. They said, I was asked by Heather Ho and Julie Wilson to supply them a list of all my issues. And I sent them that list on like June 3rd. And I was under the impression that we were operating in, I don't want to call them out, but I thought we were operating in good faith. I wasn't expecting 3 months to go by and have them not even respond to a single, they haven't responded at all. I mean, it's just, I'm not taking it personally. I'm all business here. I want answers to my questions, okay? And I'm not going to let them hide behind. I'm rambling on here, but the point is, Steve, to answer your question, yes, I was told to work through the city attorney's office. And when I give them a question, I say, this is a question for Inspector Smith, or this is a question for CJI or FPC. Do they know who, or they have, they readily know who to go to get the questions answered. It's just a matter of, if they want me to go through this channel, well, then that channel better be a channel, not a dead end. The city attorney's office is acting like a dead end now. And that's got to stop, Like I said, we're into the 4th year of the settlement agreement, and we're not even going to be able to see any of the 3rd year data until probably April of 2022. And I'm rambling on here, but I just want to call your attention to the fact that, there was a huge traffic enforcement effort that was just initiated in response to the reckless driving. I heard numbers of like 12,000 additional citations issued. I mean, the MPD is really, really clamping down. And this is the whole focal point of the stop and search and frisk. Who's getting stopped and searched? And now we're not even going to be able to see who is being stopped and searched and frisked and whatever in this huge traffic enforcement effort. So that was kind of a sidetrack. I apologize. But Steve, did I answer your question, man? I'm sorry, I rambled on a bit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you've answered my question. What I would say response to that is, now that I kind of, I guess, have a better understanding contextually that we're not going to get the runaround of being told to go to a different person, or a different person might be appropriate. Now that it's for sure that these are the appropriate points of contact, I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that this committee has this motion sent to Linda Elmer, and have this on the actual motion, the wording of the motion on the agenda, so that the whole commission can see it, so that it's public, and so people have something to refer to at the next meeting, which may or may not be, depending on whether we have a quorum on September 23rd at 1 p.m. But as long as, I'm fine with the motion as it is. I think it's important. I agree with I have the same sentiments that you have, but I just would only request that we just kind of move forward with this and make sure that we get this motion sent out in its wording so people can kind of read it and know what they're voting on. And if possible, we can talk to, privately to some commission members about the motion, and really get people engaged ahead of the meeting, so they know that they know what they're voting on. Forgive me for not being able to speak. Thank you.
Okay, so you're affirming that the second version of the motion you think is okay.
Yeah, not only do I think it's okay, I think it's going to be necessary for us to right away send it to Linda Elmer so it can be on the agenda.
Now, Steve,
for the commission to read.
we talked about, sorry to interrupt, man. We talked about that last time, and I'm since I'm not a commission member, if I is it okay for me to say, I mean, I'm kind of reluctant to ask Linda Elmer to put something on the agenda. I think it would go over better if it came from you. Would you send that email to her?
Yeah, if you could copy and paste I think you actually sent that out to me in the email. But yeah, I can
No, this
send
is a new one. This is a new version. So I'm gonna send you this one.
Okay. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll just email Linda and ask her to include it in the
Yeah, I think that would come back. I think that would go better if it came from you, Stephen, because you are a commissioner. Deborah, did you have any additional comments on this issue?
Yes, I had two. One, I thought as I was getting ready to get on the line for this meeting, I thought I saw something from Linda that said there wasn't a quorum. I could be wrong though. So, but Stephen, you might want to check that.
Yeah, the title of the email said no quorum, and then I didn't get a chance to read the details, but people were saying yes or no. I don't know if the title was based on the previous meeting when we didn't have a quorum, or if that was referring to something more recent.
Okay, well, I hope there is. Okay, and the second thing I wanted to mention, when I look at the motion, and then when I'm listening to the conversation, I'm wondering if the first sentence should be something like, quality communication is a fundamental part of strong community police relations. And then follow up with, and I would just say part of strong police community, or some positive, strong police community relations. And I don't know if this is the right phrase, but to this end, comma, the CCC should request. Or to ensure this, whatever y'all. No, I would say stop, put the period at there. And then start, and to this end, comma, then it goes, the CCC should request that. Because I think we want to keep reminding people, Paul, this is sort of to what you were saying, people might have felt like you were asking them for the information too much or whatever. But what they need to remember is you're asking it because we're trying to strengthen police community relations. And you can't do that if there's not open quality communications.
That's great. Those are great suggestions. And on that first item, I did bring up this. I was reviewing the history of the CCC for the next agenda item, and I did notice this comment here: meeting canceled due to lack of quorum. That's attached to the 7/29 meeting, and that comment could apply as well to the 8/26 meeting. So Stephen's referring to the 9/23 meeting. That he said is tentative at this point because it's not even on Legistar yet.
Oh, okay.
This is all the community collaborative commission meetings for 2021 so far. So, Stephen, I was watching for that meeting to appear on the calendar, and I'm glad that it's in the works. And I'm glad we met today to get our motion straight so that we can have it in front of them. I know it's going to be a busy meeting for them, but. So that's the deal. And let's just take one more peek at the motion here. Quality communications, that should just be quality communication. Was it plural, Deborah? Quality communication?
I think you're right. It's singular.
Quality communication is a fundamental part of strong police community relations. To this end, the CCC should request that Assistant Attorneys Heather Ho and Julie Wilson coordinate with the MPD, FPC, and CJI to provide timely responses to questions and issues raised by the community survey and research, blah, blah, blah. You got it? So, and I did want to include their emails just so that that CCC would at least have one avenue. They may have other avenues of contacting them and making this request, but I did want to put their emails in there as well. And Steve, I'm gonna grab this this text here and email it to you. And if you would be so kind as to forward that to Linda for the inclusion on that agenda on the 23rd, that'd be perfect, man.
Oh, do you want to put a slash between police and community in that first sentence as you have it in the last? Yeah.
Okay, that's consistent. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I'll get this out to you, Steve, at the close of the meeting, okay? All right, so we got the minutes, we got item number 2. Item 3 was a review of the executive summary report, and that Steve put on the table last meeting, and see where we're at with that. And Steve, I'll pass it to you. We lost your video for a second there, but if you still have audio, I'll pass it to you, Steve. Would you want to give us an update on number 3, and then we'll see where we're at on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been sick for a while. I've been reaching out to the chairman to discuss steps moving forward, so that among the executive members of the commission, we're kind of having some internalized discussions about the next steps in the next meetings. So I haven't gotten around to completing the draft in the way that I want, so it can be ready to send. It's only going to be 1 or 2 pages. As far as assistance, what I'm looking for at this point from you guys would be more date points, key dates. For example, the passage of the legislation as a historical marker, trying to get a sense of when that was. I think, Paul, you might have that even in some of your legislation. The formation of, so that's the first thing. So number 1 would be the federal ruling, when that date was. I can go back and search that, but any help with that, you can email me. Number 2 would be the date for the passage of the Common Council legislation for the creation of the committee. And number 3 would be the date for the Common Council legislation for the creation of the commission. And maybe a date for when the committee completed its work and gave a report to the Common Council and members of the public. So those are kind of the 4 dates that I'm looking for as an initial draft for historical narrative. From that point forward, it's just a matter of something that's evolving over time as we get more information from the from each of the committees as far as their work, and on the basis of that historical narrative and kind of giving some background information in that introductory paragraph, I'll include you guys as well in some of the drafts. I'm thinking that, hopefully by this weekend or in the next few days, I can have a preliminary kind of 1-page draft where I can Google Doc it to you guys, and you guys can take a look at it. And we can kind of start having a deeper discussion in this committee moving forward in terms of what we want in the overall report, because I think it's going to be something that's going to build upon itself. And I think that because this is going to be internal, I think we can make it unique compared to something like a CGI report, which might be balancing both interests and a little bit more diplomatic in terms of their perspective and how they're wording things. I think that this commission can, because we're a community voice commission, the report can be a little bit more edgy, so to speak, or at least point out some systematic concerns, some glaring concerns that the committee has and the commission as a whole. as well as the work that we're trying to do so that people are educated. But in the meantime, just as a member of the executive committee, I'm having discussions about kind of more discussions that are broader in terms of how we can engage the public more. I'm looking at creating a Facebook page as well. So things like that. I'm trying to reach out with Amy Orta with in terms of outreach. So, but that's the update. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas or know of any dates in your material, things that you think might be useful in terms of historical narrative portion of the introduction to the report, feel free to shoot me an email or text me. And you'll be seeing it soon. And I'm looking forward to what you guys kind of add. So thank you.
Well, Stephen, I will look through my materials and send you whatever I can locate by Wednesday morning, as far as the dates.
And Stephen, can you?
Thank you so much, Deborah. That's great.
Oh, you're welcome.
What was that first? What was the first date you wanted? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down quick enough. The first date.
Oh, no problem. So the first date I was thinking would be the date for the ruling by the Eastern District. I probably have it in my materials because
that's July 23rd. July 23rd, 2018.
Okay. Okay.
That's why I was saying we're in our fourth year of the settlement agreement now, and it's a whole nother conversation that we could have about. One of the last lines of the settlement agreement is that the defendants shall comply for 5 years.
Yep.
But if you're into the fourth year and they have yet to even comply with something, and then the fifth year expires, well, they never complied with it. But the agreement says you shall comply for 5 years.
Yep.
But it doesn't say give it the college try for 5 years. It says you shall comply.
Yep.
So, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but anyways, that first date is July 23rd, 2018. And then you want the date when the CCC committee was created, the one that resolution was passed, the date when the CCC commission resolution was passed, and the date that they presented, the CCC presented its findings to the Common Council and FPC. Yes,
that's correct.
Okay, great. I have some of that information as well, and we'll. Deborah, if you have any trouble getting it, let me know. Since you already volunteered to get it to them, I'll just trust on you. And but if you need, go ahead.
Yeah, I have it in my materials, kind of scourging through emails. It's just I'm kind of swamped with a lot of other things that are happening that we're trying to get together. So yeah, any kind of assistance. But as I'm doing that, I'm just looking forward to really hearing a lot of your perspective for the report. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be eye-opening, and hopefully we can have a lot of this done by the end of the year. And I think it'll give us the opportunity to really engage with some of the other committee members, right? Because as we move along, maybe November, December, at the close of the report, it'll allow us to have some reflective conversations, right? Because we could call up a committee member and say, hey, what have we accomplished? What are you guys working on? What are your concerns at this point that you'd like the research committee to include in its report, moving forward? And I think the report can be a really, really important reflective piece for each of the commission members as well as the overall public in terms of where we are in the process.
Right on.
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I'm volunteering to look at the dates, Stephen, is it sounds like you've got enough to focus on with the rest of the report. So if we can get you the dates, then your focus can stay with the rest of it.
Perfect.
Yeah, you guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Okay, I think we're ready to go on to item 4, which was, and Steve, you kind of, you had a perfect segue into item 4, which was discuss research areas that the committee should focus on going forward, including the MPD data that we discussed in item 2, status of recommendations in the original collaborative community committee's quote, report to the community, ongoing activities of the FPC and MPD, SOP changes, new initiatives like the traffic enforcement. And I also thought would consider getting an early look at any new CJI reports that come out. Like there's an annual report. Their third annual report is due it's going to be out, I think by the 23rd of September, it will be out. And so that I thought one of the things that the committee could do would be to grab those reports as soon as they come out and attempt to highlight issues that the CCC might want to pay close attention to. Like Tim Bach has done quite a good job of looking at dissecting some of the previous reports, and we can feed that process by highlighting what we see as some issues in the reports as they come out. And then Steve, you alluded to the other thing I was going to say was we could reach out to the CCC and say, is there anything you want us to look at? Is there anything we're not doing now that you want research help on? Whether it's the outreach committee or the policy committee, whatever committee it may be, we're here for them. We can help them in any way we can. So, anyways, so what do you guys see I rambled off a bunch of stuff there. What do you guys see the focus of our research efforts, say, for the next year going forward? What do you see our priorities should be?
Well, to add to what you've said, two things for me come to mind. One is I think we have to keep pushing for the survey. You know, we did a lot of work to get it to a certain point, but it's not moving. So I think we have to keep pushing for it to start moving, because we really need to be able to contract with a consultant to get it off the ground. So that's one. And then the second, I would be interested in us trying to gather all of the research in, say, the last 3 to 5 years that has been done by others in the community. So that might mean reaching back to make sure we've got the work that the CCC, the committee did, make sure we have that, make sure the work that we as a committee are doing, survey and research committee are doing. But I'm interested in knowing what has Micah been doing, or Wisdom, or and I forget the name of the justice group that Expo does. And remember, there was a lady who came here when Pam was chairing the meeting, and she was connected to a group where I think Judge Mary Trajano.
Right. The Community Justice Council.
Right, the Community Justice Council. So who are the other groups meeting on these issues? And what is the research that they've been doing? Because I think at some point it would be great if the commission could actually invite some of those groups or representatives of those groups to come to a meeting to see where the synergy lies. And for the reports, for us to see, are there threads of similar arguments or findings? Where do we as different groups agree? Where do we differ? I just think looking at that research could inform us. And that way we make sure we're not duplicating what they're doing, but perhaps at times building on what they're doing and finding ways to have mutual consensus, and sometimes perhaps some partnerships.
That's a great idea. That's perfect. Couldn't agree more. But don't stop there, Deborah. You got some more ideas cooking?
Not right now.
The
only other one I would add is I'm teaching at UWM, and one of the courses I teach is community problems. So my mind is thinking about that as well, and just thinking about connecting this to community residents. Not something large and complicated, but just something that talks about what are the major community issues that connect with the criminal justice system. For instance, I was looking at something the other day where they talked about we make it so hard for youth of color in particular to have places, spaces to go for recreation, for basketball, for whatever, they have to sign up or something, take numbers to play basketball in some neighborhoods. There are not enough recreational opportunities, not enough centers. And so we get mad because they're speeding or they're involved in criminal offenses, and not to minimize the need for public safety and all of that. But what are those things that we as a community are doing that make it more difficult for youth? And are there things we can do that alleviate some of that? And that's sort of a roundabout way to talk about how do you help youth stay out of criminal situations. If they have positive alternatives, they're less likely to engage in criminal activity.
Excellent. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Deborah, I appreciate all of those ideas, and I think that whatever ideas that we come up with could be included in the last section of our report, which isn't drafted yet, but it'll be kind of more of like, where do we go from here type of section. And so I think all of those are good ideas. I wanted to just point out, I also agree with the idea of pushing the survey, because that's of immediate concern, and a lot of ideas that we have moving forward may be based on the results of the survey, because I know that, the work that we do, a lot of it is has a primary foundation on the concerns from the ground up. And so I think that getting the results of the survey and being able to analyze that, I think, is going to be something that's critical. The report, obviously, that we've already been talking about that, but I think, hopefully by the end of the year, that can be something that is completed. I think we have Katie on here. She just joined, I believe. She's with CJI. I have just asked her if she might be available in October to maybe present. We can kind of talk offline directly behind that, but I did want you to be aware of that,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that is a request I just made, and hopefully we can have her present to the research committee. If not the research committee, then maybe somehow if we can get the commission into quorum in the next meeting, we can have her give a half an hour presentation or even a however long 15-minute PowerPoint and answer questions. But that's another goal of mine as well. I've been wanting Katie, for you and your team to present. However, it's just I know that you want around 4 weeks or so of a heads up, because I know you guys got a busy schedule. Unfortunately, we just haven't had quorum for some of the commission meetings yet. So once we have quorum, then we can make that motion and send that invite to you guys. But I really appreciate you at least jumping on here and take the time, Katie. So thank you so much. And Kei-san, shout out to you. I appreciate you guys tuning into the meeting as well. Thank you.
Do you mind if I want to jump in quick? I didn't put it on the agenda, but we did make a last minute. We made a change to the resolution for the community survey, since you both brought it up, and I didn't get any feedback from the procurement office questioning any of the new language, and Jim Ozarski said it was fine. Just to quick review, the new language was to have flexible completion dates, because our time beginning is being pushed back. So everything's cool, and I will send that out to Linda and all of you at the end of the meeting. What we call our latest and greatest version of the resolution. And Steve, I'm assuming that's going to be on the agenda then for the CCC meeting, because it has been on the agenda for 2 months now. So I'm assuming it will still be on there, and they'll have a new version, and I'll send it to the executive committee as well, so you guys have a early look at the. It's just one paragraph in the specifications that changed, and
Yeah, as long as when you send it to the executive committee and you send it to Linda,
yeah.
and be sure to strongly indicate that this is the most updated version, and it should
Oh,
be fine.
absolutely.
Thank
you. I want to address a question to Katie. I'm so glad that you're on the call, Katie, and I don't know if you want to speak, but I would hope that if you present to the CCC, that you would be willing to take some questions as well, even if they are. I don't know if you would be willing to do that. I have a lot of questions about how you are interpreting the data and challenges that you faced, and I have a long list of questions I would love to ask you. So if you if you'd be so kind when you present to allow some questions about your research and because we are trying to independently do our own research into the MPD data, and as you well know, it's not easy. It's very challenging to dig into that data. So I know, Katie, if you want to unmute yourself, you feel free to comment or comment in the chat if you prefer.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for giving me a little bit of space, though I won't take up a bunch of time. I'm happy to do that presentation. Any questions that can get filtered our way through the right channels beforehand would be helpful in order to address them during that presentation. And then, I'll talk to Christine about seeing about the protocol for, answering questions, but I don't see any problem with that. Reason I'm here is just to listen in on people who are looking at these data. And I know that you all are part of that very small crowd. So much appreciated for letting me listen in. And I am here and happy to do whatever I can to help.
Well, we sincerely appreciate you making time to listen in. And you might have heard the earlier discussion where I said that I did submit a number of questions to the city attorneys because I had been instructed to do that rather than send them to Christine or Inspector Boston Smith directly. So, and as I alluded to, I've gotten zero response from the city attorneys at this point. So I will try to do that again. And Katie, if we can get a meeting on the calendar, that would give me a firm date that I can get my specific questions for CJI to Heather Ho and Julie Wilson. And I'll say, we would like to discuss these questions with Katie at a meeting on October 30th, right? Could you please forward these questions to CJI? Because that would be like going through the proper channels, because as you all know, there's a single point of contact on the settlement agreement, which is the city attorneys. And I'll go along with that so long as they are responsive. And I will. So Katie, I'll take your advice on that, and I'll try to go through the city attorney's office again. And I really appreciate your offer to entertain our questions. Thank you very much. Okay. So I know I want to. I mentioned something I went over kind of quickly, but I did want to. One thing that's really important on my mind. Let me share my screen again. And there's something that I really want you all to take a peek at with me regarding our research efforts going forward here. And that would be when we look at the CCC's final report. And let me know if you have any trouble reading the screen or anything. But this is the final report that the CCC gave to the steering and rules of public safety and the FPC. And you recall there were 11 themes were called out. And then there were community hub meetings, and there was quite a bit of discussion about them. And then the CCC was pressed for time, and they chose to focus on 4 themes, and they made recommendations for those 4 themes. And they were community engagement, training and professional development, standard operating procedures, and recruitment and hiring. And each one of those had a policy and practice recommendation. So one of the things I thought we could do as a research committee would just be to evaluate where are we on the implementation of the policy and practice that the CCC recommended back when I think it was maybe even in the fall of 2019 or I won't try to quote dates off the top of my head, but they presented their report. But it was the fall of 2020 that they presented their final report because, whoa, gee, now I'm really messed up now. I
don't think so. I think it was pre-COVID.
Was 2019? Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Deborah. It was 2019. Anyways, might even bet. You know what? I'm going to stop trying to quote the date because we'll have to find it exactly. But the point is, where are we at with the implementation of the policies and practices? And then, so of the 4 that were already that the CCC made policy and practice recommendations, where are we at? And then there's 7 more themes that the CCC did not have time to even formulate policy and practice on. And they would be, the list of all the themes are down here, civilian oversight, community engagement, data collection and analysis, diversity in MPD, evaluation of officer performance, MPD organization, management, FPC administration authority, MPD recruiting and hiring, SOPs. Anyways, I was thinking as a research committee, do you think it's important for us to pick up where the CCC left off with forming policies and practice related to the themes that they did not have a chance to summarize their ideas on? Does that seem like something y'all want to do?
Is this the appropriate committee for that?
That's an interesting question, Deborah. We are the CCC, are we not? We are the continuation of the Collaborative Community Committee. Now we're the Community Collaborative Commission. If it's not us, who would it be?
No, I didn't mean should the commission do it. I'm just wondering, are you suggesting the Survey and Research Committee do it, or are you just saying should the committee? If you're talking about the whole commission, I definitely think yes. There needs to be follow up and follow through with it. I just wasn't sure, but I'm not sure if that's something for this committee, this survey and research.
Thank you very much for that clarification. That's very important. You're absolutely right. I did get the impression that it was something that this research committee could do. And but you're right. Something of this nature, something this broad, would be more appropriate for the whole CCC to do. But should we provide some leadership in that area and bring together, help the committee, help the commission proceed in the evaluation of policy and practice for these 7 themes that were left unfinished by the former CCC. You know what I mean? I thought maybe the Survey and Research Committee could be the initiator of resurrecting that effort to complete the work of the CCC, the original CCC. How does that strike you?
I think if the executive committee feels that's an appropriate role for us, I'm fine. But I definitely want the executive committee to weigh in and say, yes, they want us to do it, or they feel like either they or a different committee is more appropriate. So whatever direction they give us, I'm fine.
I mean, I think that that's something that can be easily addressed as a simple motion. Hey, this is an issue I think that the CCC should look into, and then have it discussed as a meeting topic on an agenda whereby the entire commission can decide the appropriate committee assignment for that issue.
Excellent. I really appreciate both your ideas are very focused. What I'll do for the next meeting of our committee, I'll have a motion ready, composed to do that, because I think that we know the CCC is going to be swamped. If they meet on September 23rd, their agenda is going to be 2 pages long. So I'm reluctant to try to put yet another item on the agenda, but I'll get it to y'all for our next meeting. A motion summarizing what you both just suggested, that we request direction and put this on the table for the full CCC to look at. That sound good?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Now, the other things that I called out in the I want to leave a couple minutes for the last item, but so I just try to make this quick. But do you think that basically any research endeavor that we want to embark on, we should run by the full CCC first? I mean, for example, just bear with me. For example, the FPC introduced, I think, 6 or 7 SOPs that the police department is going to begin another round of reviews are going to commence on September 23rd at the FPC's Policies and Standards Committee. They're going to revisit the use of force SOP. They're going to revisit the body worn cameras SOP, and so they're really I'm happy to see it, but they're really accelerating the pace at which they are reviewing SOPs. And I'm wondering if you all agree that one of the roles we could play would be to try to give a heads up to the CCC about, maybe do we want to make a statement? Does the CCC want to weigh in on any of these SOP changes? How do you feel about that idea?
So I have some thoughts on that. So first of all, I think that maybe one thing that we as a committee can work on is further defining what the research committee is and what we do, because there's a difference between alerting the CCC to an issue during our announcements and requesting something of a committee versus actually tackling the issue full on and coming up with different initiatives to do it. Because something policy related, I think we have a policy committee, so that would probably be under the jurisdiction of the policy committee. However, there's nothing wrong with seeing an issue in the community, either us as a research committee finding issues in the community that need to be addressed, and then putting it on the agenda as an ask to be looked into. There's nothing wrong with that as part of the research committee. I think that's an important place. Taking it further and actually engaging in SOP revision and things like that, that might actually be under the policy commission or policy committee. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but I think there's nothing wrong with getting wind of things that are happening in the community, alerting the overall commission, or even when our agenda item for updates in our committee come up, alerting to certain concerns that we might have based on our research of things that need to be looked into, and maybe asking other committees to see what they want to do about that, or asking the overall CCC when we give our updates as a committee about certain topics. I think that's pretty standard, and that can easily be handled, very easily be handled in any kind of commission meeting when in our agenda updates to the whole group. Where we may get into trouble would be situations where research overlaps with policy, and then we'll have discussions like this. But I'll leave it open to Deborah to see what she has to think. But those are my general thoughts. Finding issues, alerting people, alerting the different committees or the whole CCC to issues outside of our jurisdiction, totally cool, no big deal, definitely within our prerogative. Taking it a step further and actually taking action steps might get into a little bit of overlap that might be difficult in terms of managing. But I'm interested as far as what Deborah has to say.
Well, I agree with Stephen's viewpoint that from my perspective, we've got to be careful that we don't become the Survey, Research, and Policy Development Committee. And so, I would agree with what Stephen said. I'd go a step further and suggest that at some point it would be really useful for us to pull out our early document when we talked about the purpose and activities and focus of this committee. And then perhaps in looking at that, identifying what our efforts would be for the upcoming year, or, for maybe, let's say, from September 2021 to December 2022. What are we planning on doing? And we can add to it and we can subtract or modify it based on how things go. But for instance, when I mentioned looking at youth opportunities, and I mentioned looking at the research or collecting the research of other organizations, well, those things are nice and I'm interested in them. But Paul and Stephen, often you're bringing in issues that are even more directly connected to the CCC's work and to the settlement based on your experiences, because your experiences, I think, are deeper in this than mine. And so while I made those suggestions, we might in a conversation say, yes, those are good and we want to do those, but here are some things that are more pressing. So I think having a conversation about what our priorities are, what our purpose is, what the calendar looks like, then we also will see, because right now there are only 3 of us, how we expend our energy and time to make sure we get done what we think is most important for the committee and the commission.
Right on. Those are both really excellent comments. I think you're totally right. We certainly don't want to try to do the job of the Policies and Standards Committee. That's a great point. And I guess I would just think that we might be able to contribute if there is a policy where there is questionable data or there are practices in other jurisdictions and other areas. We may be able to provide input to the policy committee of the CCC to help them formulate a position that the CCC could take. So maybe we can be responsive to requests for assistance. But I agree with you that we got enough on our plate and we don't need to start try to become the Policies and Standards Committee of the CCC. That's a good point. So maybe we'll just be more reactive then. Go ahead, Deborah.
Well, the only thing I would add is I do think right now, because the commission is still in some ways in a formative phase, that the things that we're doing, I think, helps support the commission, helps keep the commission moving forward, even though sometimes everyone's not able to make some of the commission meetings. I think our work is valuable, and I think it will be very valuable to the commission as we move forward. So doing things, as you mentioned, Paul, that are research related, that then supports the work of others, could be a valuable thing. I think, though, we still want to have a communication, whether it's Stephen at the executive committee level or you talking to another committee chair. We just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're not spinning our wheels. We want to make sure if we're doing something that connects with policy, that the policy committee is interested in it. And that way will be, our time will be most effective. And I think they will greatly appreciate that support.
Perfect. Excellent. Steve, any more comments on that item? I did want to try to hit the last item quick if we got a minute for it.
Yeah, if you could hit the last item, because I'm running a little tight on time. So.
Okay, well, I just wanted to introduce the item just briefly, and this is part of the settlement agreement. The last item is review the master name ID and how it can be used to find traffic stops and field interviews related to the same person in the data the MPD has provided to the FPC per the Collins settlement agreement. And this is potentially a very valuable and powerful concept, and it's much underutilized at this point. And I don't know if it's we're running out of time to share my screen, but I wanted to just see if I can help you understand. And if you already know what the master name ID is, just cut me off. But the idea is that you have every person has personal identifying information: name, birth date, sexual preference, race. There are identifying factors. And the Milwaukee Police Department, in the context of a field interview, they have a little algorithm that can run and says, this is the same birth date, name, last name, everything, same address. This is the same. This is a unique person. So it says you get name ID number 1. And then someone else gets a field interview and they're different. They get name ID number 2. And if the person number 1 comes back and gets another field interview, then they enter that same name and address and birth date, and they go, you know what? We already got Joe Smith. We already got Joe Smith in the system. So let's just assign this person the same master name ID, so we can continue. So we have continuity across our records of all the records that apply to Joe Smith in the context of a field interview. On the traffic software side, they don't have, the MPD is using a state-owned system, and they don't have the flexibility to insert their own algorithm that calculates a master name ID for an individual who gets a traffic stop, a context summary, a traffic citation, a non-traffic citation, or a warning. They have no way of coming up with that master name ID. So the settlement agreement says you will provide a master name ID across all of your databases that connects, a unique key that connects across all your databases. And the challenge for the MPD is that the track system that they're mandated to use by the state does not give them the flexibility to do that. So they have come up with their own way of extracting records from the track system and importing them into the record management system long enough just to calculate a master name ID. So they can calculate a master name ID, and then they export it back and say, you know what? You're a traffic citation individual, but if you were you're Joe Smith and you got a traffic citation, we recognize you. You're the same Joe Smith that got this field interview. Okay, it's a way of reusing that Joe Smith's existing master name ID for a traffic stop record. Okay, and I know we're running out of time, and I will hit it again next time. I will dig into it a little bit deeper. I just wanted to introduce the idea that there is the notion of a master name index that would allow us to do analysis across all the stops. Things could be flagged as if, what if Joe Smith had like 20 incidents with the police? Would that be a case of harassment of Joe Smith? Even though he's anonymous, the data in the system is anonymous, we would have the document, we would have the CAD numbers, we would be able to follow through and say, was this a case of discrimination against this individual? Or so I'll leave it there because I know we're running out of time. And but if you have any quick questions on that, go ahead and shoot.
Yeah, and I know we're running out of time. We're actually over time, but yeah, I appreciate that. Looking forward to exploring that. And it can be also parlayed, or it can be represented as a way of improving police efficiency and assisting the police department as well, in some ways, in terms of finding records and addressing potential record duplication, or just making it more efficient to find records of individuals. So it doesn't always have to be. In other words, it can be beneficial for both the community and the police as well.
That's a really good point. Deborah, did you have any comments on the master name ID? Deborah, did you have any comments on that master name index?
Just briefly, I'd say I'm interested in hearing more about it. You know, to just learn more about it, because I think part of it would be based on what you've said before. Are there duplicates? Are there inaccuracies as well in the data? And so we don't want to be making assumptions based on poor data. But looking forward to further discussion.
Well, the main issue, the reason I'm bringing it up is the main issue is that only about 21% of the individual records in the traffic and criminal software have master name IDs with them. So they've only recently begun implementing it. Well, since the third quarter of 2019, traffic citation individuals have been assigned a master name ID, but only about 65% of those records. So the problem is that they only have coverage of 21 right now. This is as of the end of 2020. They only had 21% of the traffic records had a master name ID associated with them. So it's another one of those issues where we need to follow up with MPD and the city attorney's office and say, is this how you're going to roll? Is this all we can expect? Are you going to try to backfill that data? You know, are you just going to let it go and call it done? We'll pick it up next time, but it's a data, it's an integrity issue, and I appreciate y'all. Are you game for getting together in 2 weeks?
Yep, sounds good. I appreciate it. And 6 o'clock is a little bit of a better time for me, so I appreciate it.
Well, I did make that last meeting a recurring meeting, so I'll be posting the same link for a while, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Any closing comments, Deborah or Stephen?
Good to see you guys. That's all I got. Thank you. I got to get going. So
thank you very much. That was great. I appreciate you.